Thank you, Senator Cruz. All right, we're going to move on to national security here, and we are going to I want to read a quote from Secretary Robert Gates, former Defense Secretary Robert Gates, who served for under 8 presidents. And this is what he said about Republican candidates. Quote, "Part of the concern that I have with the campaign is that the solutions being offered are so simplistic and so at odds with the way the world really works." So in that spirit, we're going to work tonight to be more specific. Mr. Trump, I want to start with you. You've said it as president, you'll get up to speed very quickly. You'll know more quickly as president than any of the experts. So you've been elected president. It's your first day in the Situation Room. What 3 questions do you ask your national security experts about the world?
What we want to do, when we want to do it, and how hard do we want to hit? Because we are going to have to hit very, very hard to knock out ISIS. We're going to also have to learn who our allies are. We have allies, so-called allies. We're spending billions and billions of dollars supporting people. We have no idea who they are in Syria. Do we want to stay that route, or do we want to go and make something with Russia? I hate to say Iran, but with Russia, because we made in the Iran deal, it's one of the worst deals I've ever seen negotiated in my entire life. It's a disgrace that this country negotiated that deal. But very important, not only a disgrace, it's a disgrace and an embarrassment, but very important, who are we fighting with? Who are we fighting for? What are we doing? We have to rebuild our country, but we have to, I'm the only one on the stage that said, do not go into Iraq. Do not attack Iraq. Nobody else on this stage said that, and I said it loud and strong. And I was in the private sector. I wasn't a politician, fortunately. But I said it, and I said it loud and clear. You'll destabilize the Middle East. That's exactly what happened. I also said, by the way, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, attack the oil. Take the wealth away. Attack the oil and keep the oil. They didn't listen. They just started that a few months ago.
Senator Rubio. Just 30 seconds on this question, Senator Rubio. Are those the questions you would ask?
No, I think there are 3 major threats that you want to immediately get on top of. Number 1 is, what are we doing in the Asia-Pacific region, where both North Korea and China pose threats to the national security of the United States? Number 2 is, what are we doing in the Middle East with a combination of the Sunni-Shia conflict driven by the Shia arc that Iran is now trying to establish in the Middle East, and also the growing threat of ISIS? And the third is rebuilding and reinvigorating NATO in the European theater, particularly in Central Europe and in Eastern Europe, where Vladimir Putin is now threatening the territory of multiple countries, already controls 20% of Georgia and a significant percentage of Ukraine.
Let me ask you a follow-up, a full, proper question. Violent extremists are active in 40 countries. Some 80 countries are in different degrees of instability, and so that's just the crises overseas. Barack Obama walked into an economic collapse when he came into office. We face international health crises, from Ebola to Zika. So there's a lot of opportunity for crisis, as you've talked about. What would you point to in your past to show voters that you've been in a crisis and that you've been tested when that inevitable crisis comes when you're president?
Let me just tell you what's happened a couple years ago. One of the hardest decisions you'll ever make in Congress is when you are asked by the president to authorize the use of force in a conflict, because you are now putting your name on behalf of the people of your state behind a military action where Americans in uniform could lose their life. So in 2014, Barack Obama said he would not take military action against Assad unless it was authorized by the Senate, beginning on the Committee of Foreign Relations, where I am one of its members. And it was hard, because you looked at the pictures. I saw the same images people saw. I'm the father of children. I saw the images of these little children been gassed and poisoned by their own leaders. And we were angry. Something had to happen, and there was the sense that we needed to seek retribution. And then I looked at Barack Obama's plan. Barack Obama's plan, which John Kerry later described as unbelievably small, and I concluded that that attack would not only not help the situation, it would make it actually worse. It would allow Assad to stand up to the United States of America, survive a strike, stay in power, and actually strengthen his grip. And so it was a difficult decision to make. And when we only had a few days to look at and make a decision on, and I voted against Barack Obama's plan to use force, and it was the right decision.
Dr. Carson, I want to ask you a question. Dr. Carson, you've said you've had more 2 a.m. phone calls than anybody up on this stage. But when those 2 a.m. phone calls came, you operated on a foundation of all of that amazing medical work that you did, all of that learning. So if you were to be president, though, you wouldn't have the political foundation that hones those instincts when the 2 a.m. phone call comes. So isn't that a liability?
No, it isn't. First of all, let me go back to your first question for me. It wasn't phrased as who gets to nominate Supreme Court appointees. Of course, that's the president. So I know that there's some left-wing media who would try to make hay on that. Secondly, thank you for including me in the debate. 2 questions already. This is great. Now, as far as those 2 a.m. phone calls are concerned, judgment is what is required. And the kinds of things that you come up with are sometimes very, very difficult and very unique. One of the things that I was known for is doing things that have not been done before. So no amount of experience really prepares you to do something that has never been done before. That's where judgment comes in. And that, I think, is a situation that we're in right now, a situation that we have never been in before with the kinds of threats that pose real danger to our nation, and it comes in very handy in those situations.
Governor Kasich, Russia is being credited